17 after 6, if you're keeping a very close eye on the time this morning. Good to have you with us here on the South African morning. Insurance, yes, we're talking insurance this early, is often seen as a grudge purchase, but South Africa, it seems that insurers are actually the most loved financial service provider. I know, I just heard you spit your coffee out as well. They outperformed the banking, the telco, the telecommunications sector, even the retail sector. That's the one I'm not so sure about. They're based on research, or that's based on research by PwC and Data EQ, which looks at sentiment on social media. So very clever people try and understand what all of us on social media are actually looking at and why we're looking at it. Let's find some more information with PwC's Rian Singh joining us this morning. Rian, hello to you. Good to have you on ENCA. I can't believe we like insurers more than we like going shopping. That doesn't make sense. Morning. How did we get to that point?
Morning. Thanks for having me on. It's actually quite interesting. I think it's more about the conversation online and our sentiment towards our interactions with these brands rather than the underlying service. So I think we all love shopping. I think what we saw with the retail index early this year that we published, it was particularly issues around pricing and getting service within stores that hampered many of the retailers, not so much the love of retail shopping itself. And then where insurance has done really, really well this year has been around big improvements from an operational perspective in terms of how they've serviced customers, especially compared to the last few years. But let me quickly explain what net sentiment is and how our partners Data EQ go about tracking it and measuring it. So effectively what we do is we use a combination of artificial intelligence and human beings to validate whether the sentiment online is positive or negative, and assign it to an individual topic. And it's really important that we use human beings to help validate whether the sentiment is positive or negative, because AI, even with Gen AI, is not that great at picking up sarcasm. So when someone says online, thanks very much for making me wait 5 hours in the bank, in your branch, pure AI, I'd say that's a positive compliment. Whereas we know that that's clearly someone being sarcastic. And South Africa is particularly troublesome because we have 11 languages and we often switch between languages within a single post. So these human beings are then able to go through, and we looked at 500,000 posts on Twitter, or now called X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and particularly Hello Peter over the year from April 2022 to March 2023. And in that time, 17%, there was a net sentiment score of 17%. So there was 17% more praise online than complaint for the insurers, which was more than banking, which was 9%, more than retail, which was 3%. And telcos was a negative 14% over the last year. They were particularly badly hit by load shedding.
I suppose there could be an argument here as well that we as consumers will interact more with the banks, will interact more with a telco and retailers than we would with insurance. Insurance is one of those where you get 400 pages in the beginning that you're not going to read, you sign your life away, you set up the debit order, and unless something goes wrong, we don't really bother with them as well. So I suppose there could be an argument that we're going to have a more favorable view of insurance because the odd time that we use them, they actually come through, as opposed to whatever cell phone network isn't working on any particular day.
That's definitely true. So I think from the banking and the telco index, the volumes that we see online are far higher than what we see from the insurance industry. So insurance still does have its moments of truth. And particularly, I think when we looked across all the different topics that consumers talked online about the insurers, there was generally an increase across all sets of topics, except one, which was being the claims experience. And the claims experience has been particularly negative and remained pretty much flat for the last 3 years that we've been doing this report and study. Yeah. And what South Africans have consistently complained about is the claims experience with the entire industry. And this goes beyond just whether the claim was approved or denied, but the experience around it, the lack of communication, the amount of time it takes to get an answer, understanding what documents need to be submitted in order to process the claim. That South African consumers have been very unhappy with for 3 years now, and that is the key moment of truth in the insurance industry.
Who is doing what with this info? Why even do this research? I mean, it can't just be because PwC and Data EQ are bored. Obviously, somebody wants this data to do something with it. Who is that, and what do they want with it?
So if you look at the study, so we do these studies, like I mentioned, for retail, for telco, for banking, and for insurance. And typically, many of the underlying brands in those industries will subscribe to this data to understand how that they're doing and what changes that they can make in real time. So there's two types of sentiment that we measure. There's number one, operational sentiment. So that's where we can tell the customers on some sort of journey. They're buying a product, they're trying to get serviced it or claims it, or they're trying to cancel it. And then there's reputational sentiment, where people are talking about campaigns, PR, the brand in general. So you can use the reputational sentiment insights to understand, are those campaigns you're driving, are they resonating with consumers? Are they hitting the right mark? Are they going viral for the wrong reasons? And then the operational sentiment, you can use those insights to understand how are you doing compared to your competitors and where are the areas of opportunity. Particularly, like I said, on the claim side, you can see that the first insurer that really does claims well has an opportunity to differentiate itself from the rest of the industry.
This is not to try and play devil's advocate in any way, Rian, but I suppose there also needs to be an understanding, and perhaps you can provide the context for me, that yes, this is measuring social media, but that isn't a measurement of society as a whole. I can imagine a lot of people who won't go onto social media to complain about a product, whether it's insurance, a telco, etc. So, I mean, what sort of representation of society do you get when you look at those numbers on social media? Yes, it's a lot on social media, 530,000, but I mean, it's a drop in the ocean when you look at the size of the population.
That's correct, and we often say that we shouldn't look at these scores as a single source of truth, that you should complement these insights with insights that you get from your typical measures. I think the one thing that's particularly hard to do online is to validate socio-demographic backgrounds. As we continue to say, online, everyone is young, wealthy, and good-looking. So it's very difficult to actually break down across the different LSMs, across the different demographics, what does that 500,000 look like? So we would never say that these insights should be taken as standalone, but what we've generally seen is that they do validate and provide insights on top of existing, more traditional forms of customer research.
It's fascinating. It really is. As I was saying, I'm a big believer in the power of social media. But just whenever we're talking about, politics and the economy and things like that, I always take it with a pinch of salt, because it's a small, I call it a litmus test of society. It's not a necessary representation, but valuable data for those who are using PwC and Data EQ for this. Rian, thank you very, very much indeed. So now apparently, we like our insurers. I certainly... I don't know how to say this. I don't.
That's how you say it.
That's how I don't like my insurer at all.
The truth is, though, when they do pay out, they come into your life at a time when you need it. When there's been an emergency, you've been robbed, your house has been robbed, your goods need to be reinstated, and you don't have the physical cash at the time to do that, then certainly, they really come in handy. Yeah,
it's one of those industries, I suppose, where you're going to give them lots of money and hope you never have to use it. It's a really strange industry to be in. Obviously, you pray you never need insurance or even like medical aid, I would imagine.
But in the country that we live in now, Gareth, not having insurance can really set you back. Astronomical. I love what he says, that on social media everybody's young, beautiful and wealthy.
Yeah, no. So I don't know why I'm on social media. So it's obviously not my target market at all.